Hey folks, it's Samuel Heber here with yet another episode of Heroes of Autism. You can follow me on Heber Family Adventures, Samuel Heber on YouTube, Samuel Heber on Facebook, www.samuelheber.net. And we're here today with Griff, who is an inspiring football coach and to be a football coach. And he's going to tell us a bit about his story. Griff, tell the folks about yourself.
That's a great question. Okay, so to keep it simply, I am a young adult, part-time college student, as well as a part-time worker. And my passion and love for the is definitely will always been my first love. It's definitely football. It's definitely something that I enjoy doing, and I hope to be able to continue and one day pursue being a football coach, being able to mentor and teach not only players but coaches, and be able to hopefully one day diversify the coaching staff that I would hire. Currently, I'm also part of organizations that support autism, such as Spectrum Fusion, which I can give you the link if you want later. Wonderful organization. But ultimately, again, if this, to answer your question, just someone who is wanting to pursue coaching, someone who enjoys spending time with people. I would not consider myself as an introvert, more of an extrovert. And again, someone who is diving more into the autism community, not only to learn more about autism itself, but also to be connected with others, to have even to meet others who have a shared thing, something in common. Also, FYI, I was diagnosed with autism at 8 years old. It's certainly taken a while to now have an opportunity to meet others on the autism spectrum. A lot of details I just said, but ultimately that answers. I hope that answers your question there, Samuel.
Yeah, it definitely answers my question, man. So why football? Like, why is football so big for you?
All right. So how I got started in terms of getting in love or being in love with the game itself was around 5th or 6th grade. I can't remember what age, but I remember around that time. I was flipping through the channel, my parents' TV, and I saw this game, and I saw a ball thrown up in the air. And for whatever reason, I was so fascinated with seeing a football thrown up in the air. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to dive more into this. So eventually I found out like what the team was, what the NFL is, it's like college football, all of this, as I was looking through information, the rules of the game. And then it eventually led to me like begging my dad to like, hey, let me enroll, let me be part of this flag football as a way to start off. And I played flag football in 6th grade. I did it again in 8th grade. I became heavily invested not only in how creative football can be, such as rules, such as individuals involved with organizations, especially in football, schemes, discovering what defensive fronts there are. This is all football terms here. Where eventually, again, it led me to playing high school football from freshman year up until the end of my junior year. But all 4 years in high school, I filmed for the varsity and JV teams for the coaching staff. And that's where I really dive into knowing more about the game itself. And I'm still very appreciative to this day that the coaches there gave me an opportunity to at least not only be there to film games, but then to be able to see how they break down film, be able to learn more from them. And it just ultimately, my curiosity was what led me to loving the game. But what I really enjoy most about the game is the camaraderie or the opportunity to know others. Matter of fact, my 2 best friends from high school I met through the football program and still talk to this day. This August will be marking our 8 years of friendship, which is long, but doesn't feel long. kind of deal. So ultimately, that's why I love the game so much, because of what it offered to me, what it gave to me, and what I hope to do in the future is be able to ultimately, what football is teaching individuals as well as working with a group of people for a common goal, whether it's again winning or whether it's of course winning, but as well as getting better every single day and doing it together. I always enjoyed that football is not an individual sport. I like to think that all sports are not individual, but again, football is probably what is the ultimate team sport. It's about team, and it should be about team.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I think
there.
you made a lot of great points there, Griffin. That sports is a great way to. There's a shared interest, a common goal, and I can see it helped you a lot with your social skills. One thing comes to mind: football is a contact sport.
Oh,
how do you deal with your sensory issues when you're being hit by a 300-pound linebacker?
So, a matter of fact, I didn't have any sensory issues. In terms of sensory or being sensitive to sound, that occurred mostly as a kid. When I lived in Pennsylvania for a short time, I was living with my biological mom at the time. She got me a therapist that specialized working with autistic individuals, more specifically kids with autism. And he gave me some pointers as to how to handle situations where you're dealing with sensory noise, whether it's covering your ears, whether it's taking or trying to take your mind off of it, or trying to find an area where it's quiet. So I've gotten better tools as to how to handle sensory issues to a point where sensory issues is no longer something that I deal with, and even if I do, it's not so much of a hindrance to my daily life. However, it certainly still wasn't fun getting hit by some dude who was 200, 300 plus pounds over me. It definitely was not fun. I've had my share of big hits. To be more specific, I played quarterback in high school, and there were several times where I was required to run the ball like a quarterback feat, and a linebacker or some dude shot through a gap and hit me pretty hard. Luckily, I didn't fumble, but I felt like I was out of breath after that hit. So again, I was not really dealing with sensory issues, but I felt hurt after the game. I felt like I had a bruise. It was pretty bad. So again, I wasn't dealing with sensory issues, or at least as a kid I was. But for now, in terms of daily life, what I'm doing now, it's definitely not an hindrance. Do you happen to deal with sensory issues by any chance? Do you deal with that every day, or
yeah, I have a light
hindrance?
I have a light sensitivity, and certain smells I have issues with. Like when I go to the supermarket.
What smells are issues?
Spicy
what was that?
ones,
I'm sorry.
really spicy ones. Kind of when the produce has that too much of a dirt smell, it kind of hits me all at once, and it's just my brain can't process multiple smells.
How do you handle that? Do you just try to leave the area? Do you what are the ways that you handle that?
Well, for me, it's just I have a stim toy necklace, or I'll use an essential oil, or just taking deep breaths, as I'm doing it, and focusing on why I'm there rather than what's going on around me.
I see. You say you had a necklace?
Yeah, it's kind of this Buddhist necklace that has a little fuzzy thing at the bottom I can just stim on. So
nice. Did you was it a gift to you? Did you buy it somewhere? How did you get
I bought it at a yoga studio. If you go to any new agey place, they have these necklaces.
Okay. Is you said what studio was it? I'm sorry. What place was it that you bought it from?
Like a yoga studio.
Yoga studio. Are you into yoga? Are you into yoga?
I'm into yoga. Not as much as my wife, but I do enjoy doing it when I get the chance.
Okay. What would you say is something that you love doing, or a passion of yours, or what people may call a special interest? Like, what is your favorite thing to do, or that you love to do?
Well, the biggest thing for me, man, is my family and playing music, writing, camping, the simple life, really.
So you said music. When did you start first getting involved into music?
I've always been involved in music, man. Anytime it comes on, I just have to move my body in some way or another,
Okay.
especially when I enjoy it.
Did you have you played like any instruments? Were you part of any organizations that were like specifically
Um, I'm
for
I'm,
music?
I'm dabbling in guitar. I'm trying to teach myself right now in quarantine.
Okay, I
And I do a lot,
understand.
and I also write a lot of musical compositions. Like I have like songs written out. I just need to learn how to play them.
I
Anyway,
see. Are you part of groups too?
what?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm not
No,
part
I
of
was
any,
good.
I'm not part of any like social groups out here. I'm kind of just doing my own thing with this channel, but creating this huge worldly community. I've interviewed people in a few countries, and I'm doing great doing this. So my next question to you is, uh, what's the process to become a football coach for you? Like you said, you're a part-time student, and like, what's your degree going to be in?
So that's the thing. Specifically for football, the huge requirement if you're going to high school coaching or even middle school coaching is just having a bachelor's degree. Now, for me, what I'm trying to pursue right now in terms of a bachelor's is more into not necessarily sports medicine, more so kinesiology. So, like for example, one of the schools I'm looking at is a public school, uh, has a degree under the College of Education, but more specifically about coaching. Even though you would be taking some kinesiology classes, the next one that I've looked at too, that's a private school, is sports exercise. So that's something I'm looking into in a more broad term, is looking for a degree that specifically is about sports exercise. So right now, in terms of what I'm doing part-time classes, is just trying to get as many basics or many core requirements that I can, get that done. Would I love to get it done as soon as possible? Yes. However, I can only get as much done as I can, uh, as as the resources that I have. So like I don't have an opportunity to like pay for classes on a full-time schedule, but I can have an opportunity to pay for classes part-time, whether it's one or two classes. So that's the process I'm going through right now.
Hmm.
Uh, Also for me, I want to pursue collegiate and or professional coaching. However, those things are very difficult to get into. Professional NFL is such the highest level. You have to know someone who knows someone who knows someone who then knows someone, and you have to build a repertoire to be able to even have the opportunity to get your foot in the door. It's so competitive, and the hours that are required are long hours. Collegiate coaching, you just have to at least put your foot in the door to not only work on getting a master's degree, but as well as being able to be a graduate assistant. So graduate assistant is basically at its fundamental core is assisting the college coaches with any role that is being required, or any chore or anything required by them that you have to do. Uh, so that's the biggest thing. Once you get that GA position, as well as working on your masters, you then have an opportunity to try to get it connected as many to many coaches as you can, and build a repetition or repertoire to then say, once you get that masters, a coach can be like, hey, I want you to come work for me. So it's not always what you know, but it is who you know as well to even have that opportunity. And then once given, whether it's a positioning coach, whatever it may be, to then work from that and then go from there.
Exactly, man. It's about showing the work and that, getting that degree. You may be a football genius, but people that interview you don't know that, and that's what that piece of paper, that college degree is.
Yes, it's a long process. Like something that I'm also trying to master is like stop completing things and start living them. So I'm trying to master goals as well as trying to enjoy the journey that I'm currently on and try and enjoy that process. So, for example, I'm very fortunate to have the friends I have and to at least enjoy the time that I have with them. I'm not saying anything is going to change within a year or two, but I'm just trying to enjoy the moment as much as I can while still simultaneously pursuing goals that I have, but also not make life as goals, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Um, did you have a bachelor's or master's by any chance? Did you ever go into school?
I have a bachelor's degree in science.
And in what specifically?
Family studies.
Okay. What ultimately made you pursue family studies? Like what caught your eye about that?
My pursuit was psychology, but I couldn't pass a math course to save my life, so I had to morph my major into my own independent major, which is, say, I had so many sociology credits. Which, it was a really good experience for me because it taught me a lot about how to interact with other people, psychology. It really taught me how to get out of my black and white mind, thinking and be able to think about the abstract in a way I could understand. I would recommend that to any aspies out there that take some psych courses. They can really open your world up to why people are the way they are.
I see. Was there during your time getting that bachelor's, was there like a psych course that you enjoyed taking that like kind of really changed your mind about things or really impacted you?
I would say
whether it was like intro to psychology or.
Well, I think the big thing was like taking a class on body minutiae, like learning to read body language, because it was a very visual class on how to read body language, and it taught me a lot about how to, read human behavior that doesn't involve words. Because I grew up with nonverbal learning disability, which means I can't read body language, so I was basically taught how to do that through that class.
Was it ever challenging to have done it, or was it just easy to pick up on?
Well, once I took the class, it was easier to pick up on because she broke it down in a very scientific way, which is how my mind worked back then. Before then, unless you had like anime type expressions, I couldn't tell what you were feeling basically back then. But after that class, I was really able to read people's things. But sometimes I still overanalyze people's body language and I misinterpret. But I'm much better off than I was before that class. I'll say that.
I see. Would you also, if you were to describe yourself, would you describe yourself more as an introvert or extrovert or a mixture of both?
Well, that's the funny thing. We're all a mixture of both. Like, there's no one that's just completely introverted and extroverted. I think that's a common misconception. You put anyone in the right situation, they'll thrive and be extroverted. Put them in a different situation where they're not as comfortable, they can become very introverted and, or other words, mute.
Right.
And I think that goes across the board for autistic people and neurotypical people, bipolar, anyone. It is a bit of both. And the other part is personal choice. I choose to socialize or I choose not to.
So how often would you say that you go into social events, or is that like not the thing that you want to do whatsoever?
I used to like going to social events. My big thing was like concerts but now with a wife and son, I just kind of want to have a simple life, kind of a homebody at this point.
Okay.
I like going camping. That's my favorite social outing at the moment.
When's the last, before COVID, when was the last time you went to camping?
We went camping last weekend. It opened up in my state.
Really? Okay. How was that, by the way?
That was great. My family really needed to go outside, and we got to play outside for at night, and it was good. It was my mother-in-law and brother-in-law's first time camping, so it was fun seeing them experience the woods for the first time.
So what would you say then is your like favorite part about camp itself? Is it just going out in the wilderness? Is it the stars? Is it just the different location? Like, what is your favorite part about camping itself?
Man, it's everything from the stars to being in the trees, just simple family living, working together to build a fire and put up the tents, and just being in nature. It's where it's at. It's the most calming place I can be for my sensory issues, and always resets my mind. So I highly recommend camping to anyone out there.
Fun fact, so it's not like I was into camping necessarily, but for 3 summers in a row, I worked at a camp. Although it was more specifically a religious nonprofit organization, and that the camp itself was for kids and family members. But it was, I would say, ultimately it was a good experience to have just work during the summer and be able to meet others along the way. But also, like, my favorite part was like there's this one area where you can really have a picture of like all the stars. I don't often see stars in a suburban neighborhood, so to be able to have that opportunity of just seeing the stars at night and being such of a quiet location at times, it was fantastic. So I may not have like the exact experience you have with camping, but I can relate to some. So it's awesome to be able to have had the opportunity to go last weekend.
I appreciate you willing to relate to what I'm talking about.
I'm trying. I'm doing my best here.
Good job, man. So what team do you ultimately hope to be the head coach of when you reach the NFL?
See, if that ever came to be, whether it's high school, collegiate, professional, whatever it may be, my favorite answer to this is whatever team that's willing to hire me. I don't care. Whatever team that's willing to hire me, I'm okay with. As a fan, though, I'm a fan of the Cleveland Browns. If you know anything about the Cleveland Browns, they're just a terrible team. So it definitely takes pride and courage and a little bit of idiocy to be a Browns fan. It's bad.
What, like 20 quarterbacks in the last 5 years?
A correction, more like 30 quarterbacks. It's pretty bad. It's been bad. There's always ups and downs of being a fan of a team. Fun fact though, the last time that they've had like that they made the playoffs was 2002, and I was 5 years old, and they haven't done anything since then. It's been bad. It's been bad. But it's what being a fan's about. So, but yeah, that's where I was, first introduced into football too. Was that one of my grandfathers is again a huge Cleveland Browns fan and had introduced me to this team. And again, as that was the first team I remember seeing, and then I just automatically became a fan of. So I support the local team. I live around in Houston, so I support the Texans. But if it came down to it, despite how terrible they are, Browns fan all the way. So I guess a question does come to mind, though. Did you ever have an interest in any sporting event per se? Or was like sports not your thing?
The Philly sports, like Sixers, Eagles, Phillies.
I see. Did you ever have the opportunity to go any of those games? Any Philly games, perhaps?
I was going to a lot of Phillies games, a couple of Sixers games. It's on my bucket list to go to an Eagles game at some point.
Oh, well, I hope you get to have the opportunity. I know that the stadium you may know about this too, but the Eagles Stadium, I think, has a location specifically with those with parents who may be autistic or who have kids on the autism spectrum.
I'm aware of their autism program. I'm hoping to get them on the the show at some point. Which would be awesome.
You said there's a show for it, or?
I want to get them on my show. I want the Eagles to.
Oh.
Because the Eagles owner has a brother who is autistic, which started their whole campaign. So I would love to hear.
I didn't know that. That's fantastic.
Mm.
That's awesome. But it's, I see. So did you ever have you always lived in the Philly area all your life, or has it been recently you've lived in the Philadelphia area?
Yeah, mostly the Philly area, a bit in New Jersey, a bit in California. But mostly I would consider myself a Philly boy.
Okay.
Go Eagles.
Yes, go.
So, Griffin, I always like to end my interviews with the following question. If you could change the way the world sees autism in one way, what would it be and why?
I think the biggest thing really is having dialogue or conversations. I think unfortunately there's always going to be, not always, because that's more of a negative mindset, but I think there's going to be, unless there isn't any dialogue, there's always, or there's going to be negative connotations or negative misconceptions or negative stereotypes associated with autism. So I can think the biggest thing that I want people to have, whether you're autistic or not, or neurotypical or not, is to have that dialogue and conversation and be open-minded. I've, throughout years living and throughout having conversations with people, they're always surprised. I always get statements like, wow, you don't look autistic. Or, wow, I didn't realize people who are on the spectrum are into sports. Or I thought you loved math and science. Like those statements, unfortunately, are so negative that it doesn't fairly represent me. And it doesn't represent anyone on the spectrum either. I mean, there's people who are in the arts, who are in the music, as you may know this too. For me, it just so happens to be into football. So I think the biggest thing is just having conversations and dialogues to really to simplify and answer your question. And I hope people get to have the opportunity to not only, again, have that conversation with someone who's on the spectrum, but to be open-minded to then eventually eliminating those stereotypes. So that's the last thing I want to consistently go through, stereotypes, because it doesn't represent me. So I appreciate you asking that question.
No problem, man. Griffin, if you want people to talk to you and follow your story as you ascend to the NFL, how can they do that?
I think if you're just looking for football content, you can always go on Instagram, Griff Talks Football. My YouTube channel, Griff Talks Football, as well as Patreon, again, Griff Talks Football. But in terms of personal account, it's private. I'll probably accept your request, but it's just Griffen Autism. And while part of the reason why I named that on my Instagram, it's part of my identity. So for anyone who's interested, you can go ahead and try to follow me through Instagram. I mean, those are really the social media links or apps that I use. So that's it right there.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Griffin, for coming on my show. Folks, this has been another episode of Heroes of Autism. Please subscribe in the link below. I'll catch you on the next episode, folks, on Heroes of Autism. See ya.